Hey everybody, Shannon here. I am Shannon Young with Cross Country Mortgage, and I've been a trusted mortgage advisor for more than 25 years. And wanted to jump on today and just drop a quick video and just really kind of talk about some of the topics that are really holding buyers up in today's market from owning a home. So some of these topics we're going to do much shorter videos and a little bit more information on each topic. But I wanted to come on and could give you a quick high level overview on some of the things that are important in today's market when you're looking at buying a home. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is whether you should rent or even buy a property in today's market. So let's kind of dive into what the differences are, right? Because bottom line is, if I told you that your rent payment is $2,000 a month and I told you your mortgage payment's $2,000 a month, why on earth would anybody buy a home? And ultimately, what it comes down to, whether renting or buying in today's market, comes down to either equity. Do you want equity in your property versus zero ownership? Let's talk about rising rents in markets like South Florida, where the rent market is going up exponentially, versus you're going to have a fixed rate mortgage payment. The biggest difference in renting versus buying is the equity and the long-term wealth building versus your short-term flexibility. Let me explain what that means. If your mortgage payment was $2,000 a month and your rent payment was $2,000 a month, you would think that it's not cheaper to rent, nor is it cheaper to buy. However, here's what you're leaving on the table. Properties in a normal market will appreciate anywhere between 3 to 4% in a normal, quote unquote, slower type market. So by owning a home and just making that $2,000 payment, you're making 3 to 4% in a slow market on your money every single year by owning that property. Now, a lot of people will buy homes to build up that equity, to give themselves a much larger down payment on the second home they buy. It is literally putting your money in an account. In this case, it's the home that's the account. You put your money into an account and you save that money each and every month. And you let that savings build up, and over time, guess what happens? You can use that money, you can use the equity in your home to purchase things, you can use it to pay off debt, you can even use it as savings for down payment on a new home. So these are some of the things that you want to look at when you're looking at renting versus buying. Now, let's talk about some common mistakes that home buyers make, especially in 2026. The first thing that you got to do, once you've made the decision to buy a home, the first thing that you got to do is you got to get pre-approved. Now, what is a pre-approval? A pre-approval determines what your spending power is going to be. It sets the parameters on what you can afford. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions that I always see is I either have to put 20% down or I have to drain all my savings in order to buy my home. Absolutely not true. As a first-time home buyer, you can buy a home with as little as 3% down for conventional, 3.5% down for FHA, and if you're a veteran, you don't have to put any money down at all. You can do 0% down or 100% financing. Draining your savings. You don't have to drain your savings to get into your home. How you negotiate and position your offer with your realtor is going to determine how much money you can save. Don't leave seller concessions on the table. In a lot of markets, sellers are paying anywhere between 2 to 6% of that sales price as a concession to help either pay all your closing costs, buy your interest rate down, and ultimately save your money out of pocket with the ignoring seller. So basically, the seller concessions can help either lower your interest rate, pay your closing costs, or even a combination of the two, ultimately saving you more money in the process. So you've decided to buy. When is literally the best time to buy? The best time to buy is going to be the summer. That is when more inventory is going to hit the market. Now, why does more inventory hit the market during the summer? Well, because most sellers have kids and they are motivated to move before school starts. So they got to get moved. They got to get moved before August when the kids go back to school. Summer, we guess what we have? We get to spring forward. We've got longer days, which means showings are easier. You can show homes for longer, and you have faster decisions. Yes, there's more competition, but guess what? There's also more options. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you buy in the summer, you're overpaying. You have to come down to it all comes down to the right strategy. Are you truly negotiating with your seller, or are you just offering them whatever they're asking? You can always refinance a rate, but you can't rewind a market. What that means is marry the house. If you love the payment, marry the house, date the rate. Your rate will change. So we talked about when to buy. We talked about what to do and how to get pre-approved. Now, you found your home of your dreams. Now what do you do? Now we could talk about contract negotiations. Never assume that, especially in a buyer-friendly market, that the price that's listed is the price that the seller is going to accept. Now, you don't want to lowball. Contract negotiations are everything in this market. You don't want to lowball. However, the price that you may see online isn't the price that the seller is necessarily willing to accept. This has always been a hot button for me because I have this conversation with buyers and sellers all the time, and it's like, oh, well, this is the price they want. I don't want to pay that price. Okay, that's great. Now, do you want to offer them $100,000 under asking? No. But what you want to do is make sure that you open the door to negotiation. Now, the biggest thing in negotiations when it comes to what you should negotiate is not only the price, but seller concessions. Seller concessions matter, okay? A seller concession can help you a lot more times than just dropping the price. Did you know that dropping the price of a home only really matters when you're paying cash? If you're getting a mortgage and you're financing the majority of that price, then what you want to do is you want to ask for a seller concession versus lowering that price. And I'd be more than happy to show you how each of those fits into your monthly payment budget. Inspection credits are negotiable. Yes, most contracts are as is. However, at the end of the day, especially in a buyer-friendly market, sellers are more apt to work with buyers on things that come up during inspections. Cosmetic things, the roof, structural. You never know what the seller's willing to fix unless you ask. Ask. So what should you do? You should ask, right? You never know what that seller is going to say. Give the seller the opportunity to either say no or renegotiate. When it comes to negotiating, price doesn't always win. Highest does not always equal a best offer for the seller. You never know what that seller is going to do. Does the seller need to move in 30 days? Does the seller need to move in 60 days? Does the seller need to rent the property back from you for a month? All of these timelines can matter. And when it comes to buying a home, all of these timelines can matter. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be price. It could be the intangibles that can win you the deal. So, talked about a buyer market, talked about a little bit of a seller market. Let's talk about what that actually means. Buyers and sellers market is all determined based upon supply and demand. We're going back to our first year of economics, right? High school level economics. It's all about supply and demand. in a seller's market, you have low inventory, which means you're going to have higher prices. Sellers are less apt to negotiate because they have multiple offers to choose from. Put yourself in a seller's shoes if you're a buyer. If you had 10 offers to choose from, you're going to go with the offer that's going to be most advantageous to you, right? Same thing in a buyer's market. In a buyer's market, you're going to have more homes to choose from. You as the buyer have more leverage. You can actually use that leverage to help negotiate a quote unquote deal. Now, like we talked about before, can you go in and lowball? Can you go in and offer $100,000 under asking price? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, you are more apt to actually gain a quote unquote deal in a buyer market because you have more leverage because there's more homes to choose from. So there's a buyer's market, there's a seller's market. What happens if we're neutral? There's sellers markets, and it's not a seller's market, but it's not a buyer's market, right? This is actually what we're in more so today. We're not in a buyer's market, we're not in a seller's market, we're in more of a neutral market, which means take the best of what I gave you above for a seller's market and a buyer's market. Every seller is going to be different, in which every seller is going to be different for the home that you're looking to make an offer on. One thing you have to understand is a buyer is always trying to pay, under asking price. A seller's trying to get top dollar for their home, right? A neutral market is finding something in the middle that makes both sides happy. And this is where you working with your agent to talk about true comparables, to talk about what price, making sure that the price of the home is listed, competitively, making sure that the comparables in the neighborhood support what that price is going to be, the price that's asked for. You also want to look at improvements to the property. Those will hold an intrinsic value. Now, improvements, you're never going to get a 1-to-1 ratio, and that's okay. So just because you go out and spend $100,000 on a pool doesn't mean you're going to get $100,000 in value. Neutral markets can exist, and it's going to take old school negotiation to come up with a price that really meets both sides. And whatever you do, don't get tied to the national headlines. Don't get tied to the news media. The reality could be falling one day and robust the next. The person you want to talk to about the market is your loan officer and your real estate agent. They are most in tune as to what the market's actually doing. I know I've touched on a few topics up there, and I know I've touched on a few topics, and I know there's going to be a lot of questions. I'm actually, on my YouTube channel, I've actually got smaller clips of each video and each topic. So please go to my page, like, comment, subscribe on any of the videos. If you've got questions, I would love to take my 25 years of expertise and show you every piece of what it takes to be a homeowner. And real estate agents, I would love to be able to show this, not only this video, but the smaller clips to your buyers so they can be informed and to help make your job easier. Shoot me a comment, shoot me a follow. Go ahead and subscribe. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.